A tough loss for a Chicago alderman known for fighting for the city and its residents. Alderman Ray Lopez ran an aggressive campaign to be Democratic nominee in the race for 4th District U.S. Representative, but he was not able to unseat the incumbent, Jesús Chuy Garcia.
Alderman Lopez is joining us this morning with a look at that race and much more. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
So what's your reaction to some of the results from last night?
Well, I think the one reaction that I have is this. We have to do better getting people out to vote. I don't care what the race is. Seeing where we're at barely 20% is an abysmal mark for us to keep hitting. We need to energize the voting base to participate if we want to get better government and a better thriving democracy here in the city of Chicago. In my race, we saw in many areas voting was at about 15 to 17%, despite everything that we were doing to try and get people to come out and vote. And I think that, we gave them a choice. We gave them a clear choice in this race, but yet people are just not energized to come out, and we need to change that.
What do you think will lead to that change? How do we get more people to come out and vote?
Well, I think we have to start with instilling that tradition at an early age with our youth. We've seen where we've taken polling places out of schools, and we're not having parents encouraged to bring their children to even do like the pretend voting with the sample ballot. That's what I grew up with. And we need to start doing more of that and showing the civility and the civic duty associated with voting.
You would think that the issues would speak for themselves among the voters. I mean, you have been a critic of, an outspoken critic of the crime in Chicago, how the city is managed, and also the migrant crisis that is hitting the city very hard right now. You say that started on the federal level, and you wanted to help bring solutions. So with the asylum seekers that are in the city and the city is barely able to care for them, what do you think are the solutions?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to stay on those that won last night, whether it was Chuy Garcia, Danny Davis, or any of the other members of the federal delegation. As we wake up today, Wednesday, the day after the election, we still have 17,000 people living in shelters. We have a lot of issues going on with crime and an assault weapons ban that nobody wants to talk about. We need to push on them to start acting now while they are returning, because we don't have to wait till next term. They can start doing it right now.
And one of the races everybody's still keeping an eye on, which is currently still undecided, is the state's attorney's race. So what do you think about each of those candidates?
Both of them have their unique perspective and lived experiences, but I think that as Natalie mentioned, we're dealing with a lot of crime in our community, and we want to see people who are held accountable, particularly repeat offenders, people who have no regard for their communities or the innocent victims that they're impacting. But this is modern elections, right, where we send out ballots automatically, where you could still request them. So it's going to be a couple weeks before we know. It's a really tight race right now. We supported Eileen O'Neill Burke in this race because I think we have to go a different route in terms of helping people work through the justice system, but we'll see.
So you're going back to the alderman seat, back to city council, where you've been for quite a long time. And I mean, what is top of the agenda, top priority for you right now?
Well, I think right now we have to deal with the migrant crisis that's been brought to us, but I also think that we have to bring some civility back to that chamber, to be perfectly honest with you. We're turning more and more like Congress every single day, where we focus on shouting at each other as opposed to listening to each other and working with each other. And I hope that with the defeat of Bring Chicago Home, we realize that there is an issue of homelessness, but we need to come together to figure out how to do that. And I know many people have wished me well that I'm returning and staying here to be a voice in the city of Chicago. So to all of you, I say thank you, and I'm sure many of my colleagues will be quite thrilled that I'm staying in the city of Chicago.
Alderman Lopez, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.